Yo Nova Squad, what is up? It is I, Novafy here with another video. Now in this video I'm going to bring back something that I used to do a long time ago, and that is story time, where I choose a story from my past that I thought was either funny or interesting to tell, and I decide to bring it to YouTube. Now in this one is going to be quite an interesting one. It's slightly the story of my first tattoo, and also a story of how my first tattoo almost got ruined. Now, I have told this story on stream before, but it's one of my favorite stories to tell, so I like to tell it. So for those of you that don't know, my first tattoo was my Horde tattoo from World of Warcraft. It was something that I had, a tattoo, something that I had wanted since I was like 14, sitting down watching, LA Ink and New York Ink and all that type of stuff with my dad. I always wanted tattoos. So one day, one of my local tattoo studios was hosting what they called like a Pokemon Go day. This was like right as Pokemon Go was like getting really popular and all the hype around it was still pretty high. So they were doing like this special day where they were doing really cheap $50 tattoos. Most of them were like pre-designed tattoos that you could go there and have a look and look at the Pokemon tattoos that they had, which at the time, I thought, yeah, sure, like maybe I might go get a Pokemon tattoo. So I went to my parents and I'm like, hey, I just turned 18 a couple of months ago. They're doing this Pokemon day. Can I borrow $50 to go get a tattoo? So my dad's like, sure, here's $50. Go get yourself your first tattoo. Now, the story about this is pretty interesting, so I'm going to tell the whole story, and then I'll explain how it almost got ruined by my ex. I had this plan for, like, the whole week. Like, I hit my sister up, and I'm like, yo, can you pick me up and give me a lift to the tattoo studios? My parents are out of town, and I don't have a license yet. And I printed out a bunch of, like, different different tattoos that I want. Some I have already, some that I'm still planning on getting later on down the line. And sure enough, I went into the tattoo studio, looked at like the $50 ones, and they weren't like the most interesting. Like a lot of them were just Squirtle or Eevee or even a Pokeball just with like multicolored splash on it. I mean, they weren't bad tattoos, they just weren't unique. And I wanted my first tattoo to be unique and my tattoo. Like, I didn't want it to be something I knew a bunch of people had. I mean, a bunch of people have Horde tattoos. I'm not claiming I'm the only one to ever have one, but, at the time, I was the only one I knew that had one, so it was unique to me at the time, and also I was really into World of Warcraft right at that point. So I walked into the tattoo, I met the receptionist and some of the tattoo artists, and I'm like, so I was just curious, here's some, like, reference images I printed. Can I get any of these for the $50 mark? They went through them, they went, some of these are a bit too big, but this one, being the Horde tattoo, we can do that, but we need to make it a bit smaller. I'm like, yeah, that's fine, like, as long as it's in the $50 mark, because that's all I've got. And they're like, yep, sure, come back in 2 hours, because we're pretty booked out at the moment. So, my sister and I, we went around to our cousin's place around the corner. Come back in 2 hours, and they're like, yeah, we're kind of busy, can you come back a little bit later? So I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I went back to my cousins. My sister had to go to work, so my cousin's like, oh yeah, I'll give you a lift when they call you. This is the point where I should mention that I had been awake for like 27 hours at this point, because I was so excited that I was getting a first tattoo that I just could not sleep the night before. And I was wide awake the whole time. So I was sitting there watching my cousin's son sit there playing Borderlands 2, I believe, on the Xbox 360. And I was just like, oh yeah, this is fine. Next minute I know I'm falling asleep. And I wake up to a phone call saying, hey, like, we're ready for you to come get your tattoo if you want. Come on down. So I'm like, okay, cool. Went and got my cousin. My cousin gave me a lift, and she's like, yeah, just give me a ring when you need to, and I'll give you a lift home. I'm like, bet. It was about 7:30 when I got to the tattoo studio, and I was sitting there, and by the time they got around to me, it was like 10:30. Well, actually, no, it was 10 o'clock when I got in there, so it was 10:30 when I got out of there. And basically, they called me up, and they called me over, and they're like, we don't have the time to shrink this tattoo. Are you happy with it at this size? Yeah, sure, if it's still going to be the $50. They're like, yeah, sure. We're not going to charge you more because we don't have the time to shrink it. I'm like, okay, cool. So I got the tattoo in the original size that I wanted. So that was pretty dope. I'm not going to hold it against them for the fact that, you know, it was 3 hours sitting there waiting to get my tattoo because they were hella busy and like it was a really popular day. I mean, a tattoo studio offers $50 tattoos. People who love tattoos are going to come. So the story of how my ex almost ruined my tattoo. So I was there at 7:30 waiting, and I turn around, and who walks through the door but my ex? Now, I should mention that this is the same ex that I went to high school with, who cheated on me after our first date. So I have a bit of a, I don't want to ever see you again moment when seeing her. And she comes up and talks to me and pretends like nothing's happened. She's like, oh, how you doing? I haven't seen you since high school. And I'm like, yeah, hey, how's it going? You know, I don't want to be the rude one to just ignore her. And I mean, I'm going to be sitting there for a couple of hours. I'm not going to, like, have a good time if I just ignore her and have her, like, just be on my mind the whole time. My whole point was I want a tattoo. And I'm getting my first tattoo. Yeah, so she's sitting there talking to me, like, pretending like nothing ever happened between us. Like, we were just friends in high school. And then her brother walks in. Now, I known her brother. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh with him professionally. So, like, well, not professionally, but, like, competitively at, like, tournaments and stuff. So, I have a bit of history with him as well. So, him I don't have problems talking to. I never had any issues with him. So, yeah, I sat down and, like, had a talk with him and my ex. And, like, yeah, it was a really awkward situation. She almost killed the mood for me. And I at one stage, I was ready to just walk out the door, and luckily that was right when they called my name to, like, get up and get my tattoo, so I'm like, thank God, it's done. I can go in, get my tattoo, not have to look at her. Once I got my tattoo, I'm out of there. I didn't even say goodbye. I was just like, zoom, see ya. But yeah, so, you know, it's not every day that you get to go get your first tattoo, and, like, the ex that ruined your life walks in the door and is like, hey, how you going? Let's have a chat for 2 hours. So that is the random story of how my ex almost ruined my first tattoo. Now, I'm sorry that this isn't the most interesting story, but I realized that I'm recording this at like 4:30 on a Sunday, and I have to have this video uploaded in 2 hours. I promise next week will be a more interesting and more scary story, and it will be the story of how I almost killed my sister. And I'll leave you with thoughts on how that's going to happen, but we will see that video next Wednesday. So, thanks for watching, guys. Much love. Stay awesome.